Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the second half of the World OTT Show Indian edition. So we have our panelists and the moderator ready. So let me welcome Mr. Rahul Mishra, the head of marketing, Shemaroo Entertainment Limited, Mr. Arjun Arora, sales director, APAC, nice people at work. Rinku Sukumar Biswas, the Chief Marketing Officer, BiggBang Amusement Private Limited, Mr. Sagar, the Sales Director, APAC, Talkwalker, and Soumya, the co-founder, Planet Marathi Group. And to moderate this session, I would like to welcome Mr. Karan, Taurani, the Senior Vice President, Elara Capital. And the topic that they would be discussing on is invest in the advertising medium to connect with customers. All right, Karan, please fire away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vijay. Welcome everyone once again to the World OTT Show. We want to talk in terms of the advertising market in India, specifically, on the OTT segment, how to kind of convert customers online. Just to give you some kind of insights in terms of this market and what the opportunity is, in a country like India. It's a very small market as of now. India OTT story actually started in 2016, once Jio launched 4G services at affordable prices. It's a $1.5 billion market as of now, with strong growth expected in the next 3 to 5 years. The market can actually, triple from here on. That's the kind of opportunity we're looking at. In terms of demographics, again, very favorable, very compelling. We have a very large youth audience base. We've got a very large smartphone base and still scope for higher penetration from Europe. And of course, the data prices still remain to be low as compared to global average. So that's also kind of impacting consumption in a big positive way. In terms of the opportunity, I think it's very large. Traditionally, we've been a country which is, being dominated by TV. We've got more than 800 channels on TV. But currently, OTT market is still very small in terms of size, and it's highly fragmented. If you look at the globally, if you look at other countries, the developed world, you don't have more than 5-7 OTTs in a country, but we've got 60 plus OTTs, and that's primarily to do with the kind of regional languages we cater to. Only 40% of our population speaks Hindi. 60% speaks multiple other languages. There are 10 to 12 major regional languages in which content is being made. So the opportunity is very huge here. In terms of content, right from content making to marketing, distribution, and consumption put together. So let me welcome the wide variety of panelists which we have today who are going to discuss in terms of trends. And if you look at India market as well, I think we are primarily an award-centric market. So advertising is very important as far as the OTT segment is concerned. Almost 80% plus of the OTT revenue today is advertising based. If you compare this to other developed nations, they are more mature, so they've got a higher pay-based revenue as compared to advertising. But India, since we have just started about 5 years ago, we've got a very high advertising base. So I think it's a very interesting panel. We are going to talk about a lot of trends in terms of how advertising actually works on the OTT space, and how do brands and various verticals look to advertise on this OTT medium, and how can this kind of play out in the brand strategy and impact their sales positively. So let me just quickly start off this conversation with Arjun first. Arjun, the first one is to you here. So we can just talk about some kind of I think this. Yeah. So Arjun, we can just talk about some kind of data analytic and solutions around digital advertising to measure the effectiveness. So what is happening on that front exactly, and any kind of scope of innovation over there, because every brand, every marketer will ask for the effectiveness of a particular campaign. So what is happening on the analytical part for A1?
Thanks, Karan. This is a power-packed question, really. I'll need probably a whole session just to myself to go through it, but I'll try to keep it as short and punchy as possible for the audience as well, right? If the platform doesn't even know how crucial quality metrics, like how long does it take for my customer to join, how many concurrent videos streams are performing on the platform, how many users exit even before the video starts due to errors or crashes or whatever the case may be, or perhaps the layout of the content is hard just to navigate to the reach, right? How exactly then am I closing the loop of feedback with my customers? I think that's the essence of what I'm trying to get at, right? As the OTT market is maturing, and you came up with some excellent stats, and I think the way the growth of this market is happening just in India alone, we'll be the frontiers in this, no doubt, right? But customer churn still remains one of the greatest challenges for the OTT business. Ensuring the highest customer lifetime value out of the customer base is not easy and cannot be achieved simply by guessing, right? With more providers entering the market, OTT providers have to come up with ways to get their customers to stay with the service after the initial viewing experience and get them to become avid long-term, high-return clientele, right? The answer simply comes down to big data and analytics. And again, I'm not going to spend too long on it because we have a big panel here, but the key advantage that OTT players have is they are already sitting on plethora and mountains of valuable data. Knowing how to make this data work, understanding how to push and manipulate this data using the right analytics can help OTT providers with insights they need to design the best approaches, and that lead to customer satisfaction, customer retention, and profitability. In the case of advertising, where we are focused for this session today, how the user interacts with an ad. Is there an error in the ad delivery? Is the content of the ad not in line with what it should be? Quality aspects of the ad, user dropout during the ad. These items need to be measured, right? The same way we need to measure if my user base has the appetite for more relevant and targeted advertising for further monetization. Measure for your threshold and monetize accordingly. That seems to be the way we send. Coming to the second part of your question, where it was around scope of further innovation, right? Especially the industry where we line, upcoming tech will focus on end-to-end QoE, which is quality of experience, including network, device management, clients, content sources across all key departments, where you can analyze health of your infrastructure as well. So your video infrastructure and your client analytics joining hand in hand, right? And this will become the key frontier as we see it. And I think the rest of the panel can probably add to that as well. Thanks, sir.
Definitely, very valuable insights there. So, customer acquisition is key, but even the LTV is also another aspect one should look at, because the skip rates predominantly are very high. So I think one has to, that is a way of measuring effectiveness, as you pointed out. Now digital advertising also, just for our audience, digital advertising is very huge, of course, in terms of the way it operates. It's very complicated for a normal marketer in terms of understanding where exactly to invest, right? We've got display advertising, which is right from browser. We've got video advertising. We've got, social advertising. We've got nowadays advertising into e-commerce platforms. So I think it's a very complicated thing in terms of where the marketer should actually go. So let me bring in Sagar and Rinku here. Sagar, you can share a perspective on social media, and Rinku, if you can speak on behalf of OTT. In terms of, you would have interacted with a lot of these brands, a lot of these marketers. What actually propels them, to come into a social media or an OTT? What is the deciding factor? What is the kind of comfort level you could give them, to put your advertising budget into these mediums within digital?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start. So of course, look, when it comes to splitting ad spends, right? It pays for the brand, it pays for marketers to always return to the first principle, which is, what are your KPIs? Who are you targeting, right? So based on this, you'll want to go where your audience is. Where are all the conversations happening? So the key is to understand the customer first. Key is to understand that there's no one size fits all recommendation, right? So given that there is a wide range of digital advertising platforms today, there's too much data. There's a lot of rooms for marketers to experiment as well. Consumers are really spoiled for choice as well when it comes to apps, when it comes to any viewing platforms. So what brands need today is a 360-degree view, right, of their consumers. Based on that, they can actually then differentiate their product from the rest. So they need to use some, consumer intelligence platforms so that they can understand what the consumer is saying. Based on that, they're then able to divide their digital spend. So that's mainly from the social media part. So once they understand what's going on social media, what the conversations are, find that out, and then identify the audience and then divide their spend.
Right, but if you can highlight, what are the kind of verticals that are specifically heavily exposed in terms of social media advertising, or who are kind of open to spend more money over there as far as digital advertising is concerned?
Yeah. So look, so if we look at any FMCG company, right? So FMCG companies are very interested in this. Anything to do with food, anything to do with beverages. So anywhere where there's a larger audience, they are actually using this OTT medium quite a fair bit to advertise, looking at data from social media, understanding the trends from social media, and that's what they're focusing on. So primarily FMCG is something that has CPG space. That's where most of the growth is.
Right. Rinku, if you can share your perspective on OTT video.
Yeah, sure. So we all know that in India, approximately globally 50% spends are diverted to digital, but India it's only 30%. And I recall a statement made by the ITC saying that their OTT spends grew from 5% to 15%. I think there are also a lot of agencies who have come out and spoken about, I think one was Digital Grapes, which mentioned that they have seen a growth of 30% of OTT spends, where the clientele has a budget about 50 lakhs or so. So you can see that how OTT spends have been increasing, on a daily basis with all the clients. What I really believe is that a uniqueness to OTT is, apart from your video ads, which you do your pre-roll, mid-rolls, end rolls, you have your banner ads, which is a possibility. What you can also do is a lot of in-film content integrations, where your brand is able to interact with a celebrity there. So I have seen that a local market, which is a Gujarat market or a UP market, where I have A-listers from those markets, like a Manoj Joshi from Gujarat, who's an A-lister there, though he's also a national face. I have Ravi Kishan, who's an A-lister in UP. I have their content on my platform, and even when I go on floor, there are local brands from these particular markets who want to do in-film integrations and associate themselves with the celebrities. Now, what happens? We've seen a trend that if they need to reach out to these celebrities for even one Instagram post, that turns out to be pretty expensive. And whereas when they come to us as an OTT platform, I give them the opportunity and a possibility to interact the celebrity with their brand, and then they take the assets, and those assets are used on multiple usage for them. So I feel this is a differentiator that OTT enjoys. There are advertising-led funding programs that is possible today. So I believe, apart from the regular media, which is just the video media, there is a lot of interaction with the brand that is possible in OTT, and hence OTT is going to enjoy more and more ad spends in future as well.
Right. And what about e-commerce? If Sagar or Rinku, any of you can add some perspective there, because it's a very small portion of digital advertising today. But given the kind of consumption and given the kind of search for products is happening on that segment, it can really emerge big. So what is the opportunity there? That's one. And secondly, what is it eating into? Is it display advertising, which is actually struggling to keep up, and social video, e-commerce is actually taking up that share?
So perhaps I could start with the e-commerce part. E-commerce part of your question. So yeah, we've actually seen a significant growth when it comes to e-commerce, especially in a country like India, right? So the last 2 years, what it has taught us is, the world is moving from offline to online, right? So the digital consumer is also very different. So it's very important for everybody to understand what is it that they like as well, right? Especially when it comes to online. It's also very important for even brands to understand the journey of their consumer when it comes to their online purchasing habits. So once they can understand that, and that's, whether it's around, the awareness of the brand, or whether it's about the intent of buying. So once you understand that data, brands are using that more and more. I mean, I'm speaking to more and more traditional companies in India now who are looking to get into the online space, the e-commerce space. For them, the other important thing is to understand the market, understand the reviews, right? So what is being said about every product. So the key is, again, to understand that part. And based on that, they can then come up with their digital strategies as well. It's a complete shift from what they've been used to, but I think it's there to stay.
Right. And in terms of display advertising, is it eating up into that share? If you can share a perspective on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I closely observe e-commerce. My husband's into e-commerce, so I do sense and I do see that he's always struggling with more of brand monies, to brand promotion, brand marketing, vis-a-vis customer acquisition. So I do certainly see that divide, that despite of understanding that one needs to really spend a lot on brand promotion as well, but I do sense that e-commerce are eventually running after acquiring customers. So there I do believe that a slight shift is required, where you need to ensure that how one needs to not only run after the customer acquisition bit, but your display advertising, which will eventually, create your brand, rather putting everything to programmatic. So that's where I feel the jump is required of budget split.
Right. So that's the perspective on advertising, the verticals, and what exactly is happening within digital when we dig deep. But more often than not, it's said, the content is king, and content follows eyeballs, and eyeballs follow advertising. So let me bring in Rahul here, who's from Shemaroo. I see Shemaroo is a large, like a content house, and it's got a huge amount of content and catalog and library. So Rahul, if you can share a perspective in terms of where are these trends actually heading? Because globally, we are already, SWOT dominated. Do you believe that there could be a pressure, of course, SWOT in India, because of the low base, will grow faster versus AWOT. That's a given thing. But do you believe that, this will kind of negatively impact spends on AWOT-based platforms? And Shemaroo typically, has focused always on SWOT. So how do you all kind of try to compete with the larger global giants, who are primarily SWOT, with something like an Amazon or Netflix?
I think thanks, Karan. Karan. It's been a pretty interesting discussion so far, and I'm really enjoying some of the input shared. I think speaking from a perspective of a content provider like Shemaroo, what I represent today, it's India right now is in a very, very different situation as compared to any place in the world. We are seeing growth in free-to-air television. We are seeing growth in niche OTT segments, as you spoke about, the emergence of over 55, 60 OTT players currently trying to vie for attention. I think because there's so much explosion of, thanks to internet and television, there's immense growth for both SWOT and AWOT. You're right. As you mentioned, the CAGR percentage growth for SWOT would be about 43%, and AWOT would be lesser at about 22% because of the base it comes from. But both are increasing extremely promisingly as compared to any other industries. It's one of the highest growth industries we are seeing right now. And Karan, you would know it a lot better because of the current role you take care of. When it comes to competing, so obviously AWOT has certain advantages, and especially in an economy like India, where we've seen emergence of freemium models coming up, the same content available to you without advertisements also being subscribed to, or people choose to go to and consume ads and not pay for it. So we are seeing a lot of adaptation of video, which is great, and a lot of people moving and trying in different, basis their needs and requirements. So a lot of audio, especially, has seen a big surge on subscription from freemium. Video is trying to do that with YouTube and some of the MX players, with bigger players trying to do that. Where Shemaroo sits currently is, you're right, we are essentially an SWOT player. We have chosen to be driving a business of OTT in back of subscriptions. And within that itself, we've identified certain regional languages and genres where we feel we can create that impact to, to drive subscriptions in large scale spaces. Incidentally, Shemaroo as an OTT player uses other OTT AWOT players to drive subscriptions as well. So media and entertainment industry itself is a big, brand user of a lot of AWOT platforms. And those conversions actually really help us build an SWOT platform too. So apart from AWOT complementing SWOT to freemium, AWOT is also helping drive SWOT business for many brands like us currently.
But I know it's very tough for this, but just a crystal ball basic question. 5 years ahead, we are at what, 80-20 or AWOD versus SWOD in a country like India. Do you see that becoming 50-50 in the next 5 years?
No, I don't actually. No, I don't think that SWOT would sort of see such a huge explosion. Yes, there will be. Yeah, it'll not be 50-50. And essentially, a lot of this is backed on the investments happening on the award platform as well, Karan. We have seen the likes of YouTube and Facebook Watch putting in huge amount of investments to ensure that they have the right content being either created or UGC coming out enough for people to be engaged on these platforms. So we will see a meteoric rise of AWOD, also happening at the same time when SWOD is growing. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Like, very interesting. So I think AWOD dominance will remain, and video advertising, for that matter, will remain strong. Yeah, right. You want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to add is that BiggBang is trying a mix of AWOD and SWOD platform, where at a very nominal subscription, which is 11 rupees annually, we're trying to get the audience onboarded. And then we're also showcasing, but very limited advertising on our platform. So we're trying this where we could get a win-win situation from both sides, So we're experimenting at this, and we really believe that, the kind of momentum we've got right now, we'll be able to exceed that. So I think there will be certain innovations, this category will have. We've thought of this, somebody else will think of some other innovation and try and see, what works for them and then move forward. India's country of experimentation, we know that, it's innovating something or the other on every single day basis. I'm sure that this category will have certain innovations we've not even thought of.
It's a very interesting perspective as well. The country is very huge, so there are different behavior patterns which you can see across so many states, so many regions in itself. So let me just move on to Soumya. Thank you so much for being so patient. Just I've got two questions for you. One is on this regional OTT aspect clearly. So firstly, what is the kind of audience behavior? So when OTT started, we saw English was the first one to transition to OTT. From the traditional media. Now we are seeing Hindi also slowly and steadily transition because you're seeing too much of content on offering. And suddenly we've seen regional also come from nowhere and come up with so many OTTs like Hoi Choi, Aha. There are multiple other Gujarati and other OTTs which are there. So firstly, what do you think about this transition, of the audience from traditional media to the digital media? How fast could that happen in the regional genre?
Thank you, Karan, and thank you, everyone. It has been a very interesting input that I have been getting through all the session. So it has not been a transition, as you say, of the audience from global to being regional. See, there have been stories which have been regional. They had to go global. The thing is, the technology started with global, and then it is penetrating into the regional space, right? Because OTT started with international audience. It started with international content. That is the tech where it started, and then it is gradually going on to the national, which is like the Hindi audience, and then the regional players are coming also in forefront because they have more stories to tell. Whatever we get, sorry. So whatever stories we have, whether it is going globally or internationally or nationally, the stories are always regional of those part, but then those are represented in a global way. So the audience was always waiting for the regional stories to come in. Only that the platforms were never ready. So they got ready once they had that confidence of coming onto the global and the national audience also. They knew that the stories are going global. It will never be confined to the only regional audience. The stories can be syndicated, can be dubbed, and can be like catered to the complete audience across the globe. So the audience was always ready. We were never ready. That is what we can say. That is my take.
Yeah. So what about the advertiser interest in these regional OTTs specifically? I mean, is it more local advertiser driven? Is it that even the pan India brands are kind of okay to advertise on this smaller and niche apps? So what is the kind of advertiser interest here?
Yeah, so I just heard everything like from Rinku to Arjun, whoever like talked about the digital marketing spends and the digital advertising also. So now in 2019, we have seen that 19% was the marketing spend that was spent on digital marketing out of the complete marketing advertising sector. In 2022, it rose to 29%, which went into the digital marketing spends, right? And most probably in by 25, we would be seeing that around as a 43% growth out of the complete advertising sector. It would be done on the digital advertising. Why are we seeing this surge? Because might be it is getting penetrated into the regional space also. The global advertisers are fine, but then they have to penetrate and they have to reach out to the extensive audience out everywhere. So any kind of brand that is starting over it at any corner of the city, it starts from that city and it has to reach out across the globe, right? So the regional space has to be there and the regional advertising has to be there. We have seen advertisers, we have seen sponsorships coming on from regional to also the national players coming on, right? It also gives a kind of facilitation to the regional players, like a small sweet mart owner or a kind of hypermarket owner at a regional space could never have been gone to a television doing the kind of spends that are required over there at the television space, right? But then he can go to the local or the regional OTT space because he can afford that and he can reach out to more audience. The similar kind of audience might be what today the audience is there in the television sector is something different, but then we know that the digital audience is going to be extensive and that name is going to go global. That he also knows that if he goes for an in-content branding, if he goes for a sponsorship of a show, that show can be read out somewhere in Bengal or somewhere in US also. So his name also goes over there. That is the kind of marketing power that digital marketing has right now, advertising has.
So is it safe to say that regional OTTs are largely driven by local advertisers? It could be a 70-30% share, somewhere in that range, in favor of local.
It gives a market opening to everyone. It depends on the market space wherein we can have 50-50 also and we can have 80-20 also. So the drive depends on how faster the regional space and the regional advertisers come up into this sector, because they need to have those kind of platforms over there. So like in Maharashtra, we are the first one, the first Marathi OTT platform which has started as yet. So might be this is a platform which the content creators were also waiting for, and might be the advertisers were also waiting for.
Right. Very interesting there. So let me bring Arjun back here in terms of the advertising verticals and how things are looking in terms of the growth patterns going ahead. So of course, currently what we look at digital advertising, it is largely driven by verticals like FMCG, e-commerce, tech, telecom, auto, which are largely youth driven and have a very focused customer approach there, unlike TV, which is masses. So one thing I want to check with you firstly is that is there a big opportunity here for SMB, right? Because if SMB comes in aggressively, digital advertising growth can grow multifold from here on. Firstly, what is the opportunity there? What are the kind of risk and concerns one has to look for this kind of a potential? And secondly, any global examples you can correlate in terms of how it is taken off once there's a support from the SMB segment as well?
Over the last 10 years, right, we've been seeing the trend of how the marketing, the way we trade media, whether that was linear, then to digital, programmatic route, and then the whole era of mobile to everything. The essence of advertising hasn't changed. There's one person who's making the media, the other person wants to buy the media, and there's a medium in between, right? How SMBs and how everybody is now able to capitalize on where we are today, that is become easier because of all these 60 plus OTT platforms, the numbers that were stated in India, likes of Soumya's and Planet Marathi being regionalized OTT players. Rahul and Zubin's Shemaroo team doing excellent work on where Pankaj Tripathi is now an OTT superstar versus Amitabh Bachchan on the big screens, right? Where Rinku is mentioning names like sorry, I forgot the names, but the guy in UP and the guy in somewhere else could be a great access point for somebody. Some mom and dad business want to invest on that, which are not able to because of the sheer scale and the money required for getting their foot in the door. Now it's accessible. What technology has done is made all of these points accessible. How SMB ties into this is shared word of collaboration and being aggregated. Now we are not buying a 9 to 9:30 p.m. show slot on channel whatever on a television. What we are buying is audience, right? And audience purchasing has become easier because now I can go as an aggregated pool, buying an aggregated pool of audience. I hope that is all ties up with how it is going to carry on in India as well. What I'm seeing from a global perspective, and its examples where they are heading, is personalized and targeted ads, right? That is one key big thing that we have seen. Now, Rahul, Rinku, Soumya, Sagar, and Arjun could be watching the same show at the same time, but could be hit with different advertising based on our interest and based on what we want to. So that has tied up even more. Biggest examples you can see them in the industries across automotive. You can see it across travel. Beyond COVID, now you will see travel exploding on that category. You will see sports. I mean, just the cricket alone in this country is huge, and where that's taken in terms of advertising, I think we don't have to repeat the numbers which have been said the whole conference today. This is the scope. This is where personalization, collaboration, and then use of technology by right measurability and by right metrics on data will form the key the key soup, the ingredients for this.
Right. Personalized advertising, I think, is another big trend. I think that can lead to a big jump in terms of pricing as well, in terms of what the platform or the content owner may charge you. That's a very emerging trend there. So let's move on to some other metrics here in terms of digital advertising. The other very important aspect is measurement. And if you look at globally, there is no proper medium of measurement. Every OTT platform gives their own data in terms of MAU, DAU. There is no third-party measurement over there. So I think it's very important to bring that also from a marketer standpoint, just to get more confidence in terms of the effectiveness of the advertising spend. Now, Sagar, Arjun, and Rinku, I'd like to get your perspective, all three of you, this perspective, basically. How does one address the issue of bots and effectiveness, in digital advertising campaigns? And is there any measurement medium globally, for digital advertising? And do you believe in the next 2 to 3 years something big can really come up here? We did hear that BARC also was trying to explore this idea of digital measurement, but that actually did not happen eventually. So any possibility on that? And of course, because that will be like a big re-rating kind of a thing, for the digital advertising industry. It will give more confidence, and more advertisers might come in and spend up more amount of money. So any insight to share on that, Sagar, Arjun, and Rinku? Thanks. You can start off with Sagar first. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So look, I definitely agree, right? So bots are a huge problem when it comes to measuring any campaign success, right? They're really a nightmare for advertisers, for marketers that actually want to improve their campaign effectiveness. They want to, ultimately drive brand success, and then bots sort of, hamper that progress. So I know that technology is something that can actually assist with that. There are companies that are trying to work on it to understand and to take away those, those sort of, the conversations by bots. Even at Talkwalker, we are working on a similar technology as well to kind of weed out those bot profiles from the millions of data points that we have as well. From a measurement perspective, I also believe that yes, there should be there will be global measurement standards, but also it's very important for brands to have their own specific tailored measurement content as well, right? So based on they should have some sort of right custom scoring so that they can understand the effectiveness of their campaign, and that can actually be done using technology, mitigating everything that bots have been saying, so that they can really effectively maximize the impact of their advertising.
Yeah, Rinku, your perspective.
So yeah, currently it's whatever rocks your boat, that's where we are. And we do get a lot of questions from the brands, about the measurability and the truthfulness to it. And I agree what Sagar also mentioned, that there are multiple ways a brand can identify what works for them. There are marketing modeling mix, there are multi-touch attribution that the brands, I believe, must carry it for them to understand not only digital or OTT, but other media mix also, what helps them out. We launched just last July, and therefore we're not able to really convince the audiences of the clients, to really come and on board with us on video advertising. But what we are really able to do is get a lot of content integration done, because when you do a content integration, it's there perpetually. When it's there perpetually, that means even if today I'm a smaller OTT platform, but in future when I become bigger, that content integration remains on my platform. So even I enjoy the benefit and support of a client today, and even the client enjoys that benefit because I am obviously giving that at a very nominal rate. So I think it's again what rocks your boat, how you're able to build that trust with the clients at this moment, with the lack of measurability, which is a third-party measurability. Otherwise, one can really go out and speak any numbers off. So that's, I think, is a way forward. You mentioned that BARC, we all know that BARC tried to come up with a measurability tool. And if they've tried it, I'm sure in future there will be somebody who will be successful, and we will have one in place.
Right. Arjun, globally, any examples there? Any measurement data or any third party?
The quick one that comes to my mind is IAB. They're doing a lot of work. So it's cross, especially in my market, so for Australia, Oceania in general, and APAC to some extent as well. You see a lot of correlation, whether the work they have put back in the day for ads or TXT, or whether that be VAST and VPaid and new measurability stuff that they've been trying. There needs to be a central standpoint where it has to come from both the agency world, the buy-side world, and the content world and the publisher, that yes, we do a handshake here, and that these KPIs are going to be something that we both agree on. Essentially, we can have all the technology in the world, but we are humans behind that laptop and behind that screen as well, right? And that trust, until established within the ecosystem, within the way through that, yes, we all agree to, if my viewability is going to be so and so, and I don't define it as 50% on your page and somebody else defines it 100%, these clinches are always going to be around, right? Because unless that acceptability comes from across the industry, and I'm a firm believer that beyond the duopoly of what it is of walled gardens, and then if growth of internet is needed and growth of all these platforms is needed, things have to work together. We have to collaborate, and we have to come to certain general rule of definition. We can't just have 20,000 acronyms being posted every 6 months and say this is the new technology, when essentially it is not new technology, it's something some new guy is trying to do, and is just giving it a new 3-letter acronym, and that's it. You know what? I think everyone has to come on board on this and accept the general terms of what that term means, and then these questions would not be the questions for the last 6 years we are hearing in every conference.
So there is hope and respite for something new.
And there's always going to be hope. That's why humanity is where it is, right? If with no hope, we might as well call it a day, right? So because of hope, we are still here.
Let's hope, because I think that will be a big trigger, advertising or digital advertising to grow leaps and bounds. Anyways, let's just move back to content now. Let me get Rahul and Soumya back here. So Rahul, firstly, Shemaroo is obviously an SWOT platform, so you may not be able to add insights here, but just because you've been working with OTT and video content, all the metrics, like I don't want to name any platforms here, but there are very large AWOT platforms here which make content, which make web series, and which have got a huge amount of marketing, advertising revenue, on their platform. But in terms of measurement, again, it's their own internal metrics, right? DAU, MAU is what they basically give, and there is no way in terms of someone can check the authenticity of that and what exactly is the conversion rates, how much of that is bought, how much is real. So how do these kind of large AWOT OTT platforms give confidence, to an advertiser that, your marketing campaigns are effective, the customer is viewing your campaigns? How do they actually build the confidence?
Yeah, I think, Karan, very interesting question. And on taking on to the last point about transparency on digital, I personally feel digital is a lot more transparent than some of our traditional media right now. 50,000 boxes determine millions of viewing habits in India. Same with print, same with outdoor, anything else. So I think digital, just because it was very easy to measure, we've been putting too much focus on that measurability. And while I agree there is an infestation of bot traffic and clickbaits and other things happening, but there are a few tools available. I'm sure you guys have heard of Sysmex, ad tools, etc., which obviously the entire industry doesn't really buy into. So, some people will want to deploy, some may not, but there are some common grounds which are developing for digital advertisers to measure the effectiveness of the campaign. The other part is most brands by now have built a certain digital funnel. They know when they run a particular campaign, what is the top funnel they're creating, and then what is it, if provided the brand has a digital footprint, can actually get some really quick measurement coming in. And that's the sort of benchmark tool they would use for a campaign on another OTT player or another digital platform. So brands themselves are inventing their own measurements on these platforms, and that's very interesting. And some of them are actually very, very, very hard KPI driven objectives these brands are going with on these OTT platforms, are able to achieve it as well. Just the last point on this is, there are brands, it's the, digital, till the sort of video growth wasn't a medium looked at for, and it wasn't an impact medium. So in marketing, we call it impact or reach medium. Digital was never considered an impact medium, and not for building brand. It was supposed to be a performance medium. You actually get certain amount of traffic and you just build that reach through digital. Thanks to OTT platforms, brands are now investing in digital platforms like OTT, MX, YouTube, Hotstar, etc., to actually build a brand. We've seen emergence of many brands on these platforms itself. So it's a mix, is what my response is to close this on this point. That there's a lot of pressure on measurability on digital, which is being balanced by brands themselves inventing their own methods of measuring success.
Right. So I think trust is a very big factor which plays into this aspect, in terms of the marketer and the platform. The trust factor and reliability is something which does wonders here, unless we get a measurement system. And of course, BARC, as you said, is basis sampling, but that's how all the traditional mediums are. So yeah, that's the unfortunate part as well. Soumya, just one last bit from you, in terms of regional OTT and where this space is looking going ahead. So, a lot of these other global giants are also investing into regional content. They are coming up with big budget and big plans to invest into regional content. So, how do you think, this will kind of intensify in terms of competitive intensity, for this segment? What could actually be the future of these small regional OTT apps in the midst of these large global giants coming in and investing very aggressively in terms of content?
And very interesting question, Karan. So obviously, these big giants have deep pockets, right? We all know that, and they can afford to go out from anywhere to anywhere, wherever they want. See, when we started with this OTT platform, I'll just give you a bit background. When you know that there is no regional OTT platform for Marathi, you start with something with a passion, okay, with a kind of vision that you have to reach to a global audience of some 100 million or something, right? That you will be doing gradually. So we already know that there can be enough players in the market. We are not going to be the only player in the market. Obviously, we can start very slow and we have to go gradually, but we have to reach to a place wherein even though tomorrow, if there are 3-4 more players or even a bigger player comes into the market, the competition would be a healthier competition. It will not affect any kind of competition in kind of content or anything, because it all depends on what kind of content you use, what kind of content you choose, and how are you going to portray it and where are you going to make it reach, right? We have to penetrate it inside the smaller towns, the rural audience, and even to the global one. So we have to create a kind of content which can be appealing to both of the spaces. Wherein right now, where you can see Amazon, Netflix, Z5, many players are there. They are also having the content, but they have a certain kind of content over there. We are trying to take the regional stories to global. Okay, obviously we are not matching the budgets. We are not going with the budgets because whenever you are trying to create a content, it is not only on the budget. It all depends on how the storytelling has been done, how the presentation has been done, what are the kind of characters that are being played, not what are the kind of actors that are being over there, right? If I try to bring high rating actor from Bollywood to work in my regional space, then obviously I would be spending all of my marketing and the rest of the strategy into that only, right? The spends over there. So it all depends if I am choosing stories which will be recognized, which will be correlated to the global audience, and which I can present in a way wherein I know where my spends are going and where I can create revenue from. I know my limits over there, right? I have to reach out to the audience, understanding my own budgets and then going ahead with them, not competing with the already larger giants, because I am creating my own space. I am not getting compared. I am not trying to compare myself, or I am not in a race to go ahead and then compare myself with Amazon or Netflix. Okay, I have to create my own path, and people have to say, okay, this is Planet Marathi and we have to follow this. So I have to create my own path.
Right. So I think
Deep.
regional niche is here to stay despite whatever is happening from the global OTT giant perspective, right?
So
Because
I think
compelling
Rahul would
stories
know it
move
much
audience.
better. So
Very interesting indeed. So I just have a final question for all of you all. If I just need, if you all can spend 10 seconds each on this. We all know clearly content is king. We all know that content drives consumption, drives advertising on any kind of platform put together. But what do you all believe, of two other things? One is distribution and other is tech and user experience. How important are these two factors for success of any platform? Just 10 seconds each of you. I'll start off with Arjun first.
I'll use my 10 seconds. Okay. Content is king, but the two Y's of the king are quality and engagement, right? Quality content and engagement with the users. And that will define everything else which is around, which is including the distribution, including the tech, including everything. Because if it's not good enough, it's not responding enough, all the other strategies need to come back to tier one, right? So quality and engagement. And we at NPOP believe it heavily.
Right. Thanks. Soumya?
Hi. Yeah, so Arjun has already summed it up. Obviously, we need content which is niche, and we need technology which can make it smoother so that the experience is completely smoother. And we keep on engaging the audience with the right kind of content and the right kind of interaction by giving them the exclusive content, not the content which is available over everywhere. That is what I feel.
Thanks. Rinku?
Content has always been the king. With what I've experienced, is first the product, which brings out the user experience. We have a lot of non-metro audiences who need simpler products to operate, not very fancy. They need recommendation and everything served on a platter. So if your product is accurate, then comes the content, I believe. That's what you put on it, and then becomes the distribution wherever that you want to distribute. So I believe if you don't have a great product, and even if you have a great content, one wouldn't really want to log in and watch because you're not able to, you're just crashing or some of the other things happening. Product in the OTT business, then content, and then distribution.
Right. Sagar?
Yeah, I think I'll just echo what all the other panelists have said, right? So we, today, all of our consumers, they're expecting a personalized service, but they all want everything faster. They want everything better. They want everything now, right? So whilst content is the king, I think one of the other very important things is I think, as you said, user experience, right? So to have that user experience, so to understand that, consumer is also equally important. So optimizing that customer experience is really, really important.
Rahul?
So my my 10-second closure is I think content discovery. That's a very, very important aspect for most OTT players. How do you get your content to be discovered by people who have on your platform? I think that's going to be the crucial piece going forward.
Right. That's a very different aspect. Right. So, just, for the interest of all the audience, let me just quickly summarize what all we discussed. And some trends out of this panel, what we could gauge. One was, of course, it's very important for right from customer acquisition to retention. So I think LTV of customer is very important. FMCG will remain dominant as far as digital advertising is concerned. E-commerce is the next big thing within digital advertising. AWOD dominance will remain versus SWOD in a country like India. If you look at regional, again, regional is a very effective way in terms of advertising. It gives an edge because the pricing is slightly lower as compared to the Hindi and English video OTT advertising. Measurement, again, there is no visibility in terms of where we are heading, but it's largely trust and reliability based as of now as we head. Of course, there are new tools which are coming, but they are on a trial mode right now. And digital is now become a medium. Digital advertising is a medium right now wherein it is not only just brands which are coming, established brand, but also new brands are kind of becoming big through the digital media, which is a very good thing for the medium as a whole. And regional is here to stay, for a long, long time, and especially the regional niche which is there. And despite large OTTs coming, the regional, will have their compelling stories to tell out. So thank you very much to all the panelists for taking your time out and for enlightening our audience here. It was indeed a great session. I think we're running out of time. There's no time to take questions. So thank you very much. I'll hand over the floor to Vijay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tarun and panelists, for the brilliant session. Appreciate it. A small announcement for our delegates to know more about the OTT Solutions, Nice People Work, and Talkwalker, our partners' office. Kindly visit their booth to explore more. Thank you very much again for the wonderful session, Tarun and the panelists.